It is Mythology Monday. I'm very excited. We're going to start looking at one of my favorite works from the ancient world, and I know I have a lot of favorites, but uh, one of my absolute favorites, and that is the Aeneid. So we're back to Roman mythology, which we did not that long ago, but it's really really cool. It's good. I don't know exactly how I'm going to be doing this. I'd like to read at least some of it. I don't know if I'll read the whole thing because it's a lot, but yeah, we're gonna start talking about that today. And again, if you are watching this on YouTube, welcome. I live stream just about every day over on my Twitch channel, which you can find links for in the description below. So like, subscribe, comment, do all those YouTubey things. Thanks. Well, Eridan's, I mean, he certainly wants to be on the computer and play video games as much as he can, but we'll see what that looks like. Hello, Rabid Wombat. Good morning. Well, good morning here anyway. So, the Aeneid. I am talking to the future. That's right. I know this VOD won't go up on YouTube for several days at least, but I always forget that I should put something in there for the YouTube crowd, right? all of those people. Yes. At some point we could have a talk about Twitch and how annoying it is, and how there are so many options that you as a streamer have, and they don't seem to do much of anything. You set up, hey Squirrel, how's it going? You get ready for a stream. You put in your category. Does it matter? Probably not. I'm trying to figure out if there's any difference between doing talk shows and podcasts or just chatting. Thus far, I can't see any difference. And again, I'm very small in the Twitch ecosystem, but like I don't know what's the difference there. And then the tags that you can put on your streams. Thank you so much for subscribing. I appreciate that. Resubscribing, Squirrel, I love it. And then like the tags are just, the tag system is so bizarre. There are really weird tags in there. There are tags that clearly no one ever uses, and I got to imagine Twitch has some data analysts there who can press a button and see which tags are used, and how often, and which ones are no good because they're not ever used or ever searched, or ever clicked on, and then tags that are too broad and everybody uses them. And I know. Yeah, Zach has talked about this before. Discoverability on Twitch it's not good. It's not good. Amazingly, when I do Warhammer streams, or when I do streams in the Warhammer category, I will get random people dropping in every so often, which is cool. Other than that, not so much. I mean, once in a while. I haven't gotten a troll in a while. I don't know what that means. I don't assume that means there are fewer trolls out there, but yeah. Anyway, all those things. If anybody ever comes across some expert writing about how to use any of these systems for actual, profit, let me know, because I don't think it actually exists. But like I said, yeah, Robin Wombat, that was cool. That J Zone person, right? I was hanging out in Rabid Wombat stream yesterday. It was super cool, super chill painting. Okay, so the Aeneid. Now, like I said, Aeneid is one of my favorites. I first read it in English way back in undergrad at UCLA. Well, that's true, Eridan's. That is a good point. So I bought this in the UCLA store, apparently on, I don't know why it's stamped, but on June 12th, 1995. So like specifically when I bought it. No, maybe that's when it was returned to the store. I don't know. Anyway, so this is my English copy that I've had forever. I have some other copies, but this one is perfectly serviceable. Of course, there are a million different versions of everything. So then later on, I bought the Loeb edition. So when it comes to reading things in the original language, typically the best ones are the Oxford editions. But there are also... Oh, I should have grabbed one. What is the other one? The green and yellow ones. I forget the name of it. Anyway, but Oxfords are... Oh. Well, thank you much. Thank you very much, Squirrel. Always appreciate talking to you, even if it's just for a moment. Have a good one. So again, in original texts, Oxfords are generally the preferred ones, and so they'll give you... And this is just in the original text. There's no English in these books whatsoever. But there are other versions, of course. So these Loeb books are really cute. They're from Harvard, and they're little. So they're smaller than full-size books. They actually have... Every page is the original language on one side and English on the other. So they don't use these quite as much for classes because they want you want to learn to translate without having the translation literally right there on the page. But I have to point out, so Virgil, who I'll talk about a little bit more in a second, obviously the most well-known thing that he wrote was the Aeneid, right? This epic poem about the hero Aeneas from surviving the Trojan War and making it to modern-day Italy and helping found Rome. But Virgil also wrote some other stuff that survives, including a series of poems called the Eclogues and the Georgics. So that all of that was too much to fit in one of these little books, so they divided up his content. But in this book one, it's not focusing. Anyway, it's all the Eclogues, all the Georgics, and the Aeneid books 1 through 6. So you don't even get the full Aeneid in one of these books, and these books are not cheap. So to get the full Aeneid, you have to buy multiple of these dang things, which is a little frustrating. But like I said, they're cute little books. They're fun to have around. So a little bit of that kind of stuff. All right. So who is Virgil, and why is he writing about Trojans? Yeah, that's a good point. It's a little bit like Games Workshop practices. Well, you want this, but to get this, you got to buy multiple things. So let me see. Let me pick up on. We've got. Oh, you know what? Actually, let me go. Now, when you hear Roman names, for most Roman names, we shorten them by a lot. So we'll talk about Horace or Virgil or Ovid. But those aren't their full names. Romans had long names, at least 3 different parts. They were very complicated, but there's a long tradition of shortening their names to just one name. So Virgil, again, who we refer to, his full name was Publius Virgilius Maro. Again, so there's like a nomen, a cognomen, the family name, like it's all jam-packed in there. So Virgil lived from, let me see here, 70 to 19 BC, which was a pretty exciting time for the Romans, if you know any of your Roman history. And he loved Homer. He was all about Homer, the Iliad and the Odyssey, and other ancient poems as well. But he was really all about it. So he set out to write his own, and he took a lot of obviously inspiration, but down to like the writing style, how it's laid out, the dactylic hexameter, which again we don't really get because we're not reading the original language so much. We're gonna see like direct references to Odysseus, and oh man, I start talking about historical stuff and half my viewer numbers left. I know you can't trust OBS to give you actual correct numbers. So yeah, it's not exactly like, it's not aping Homer, but it's really taking a lot of inspiration in form, in content. We'll see things that reference the Iliad as well. It's it's pretty good stuff. And hold on, I want to find one thing. I was looking for one note. All right, it doesn't matter. Okay, that doesn't matter. All right. So yeah, let's just take a look. Let's just jump right in. Oh, and I will give you the very beginning of the Aeneid. I'll read it in Latin. I don't know exactly the tune of it, like I do the beginning of the Iliad, unfortunately. So it starts off, Aeneid, Book 1. Arma virumque cano, Troiae qui primus ab oris, Italiam fato profugis, Laviniaque venet litora, multum ille et terris iactatus et alto, hui superum saeve memorum Ionis ob iram, multa quoque et bello passus, dum conderet urbem inferitque deos latio, genus unde latinum albanique patres atque alte moenia Romae. So what does that all mean? I'm going to read it in English. Book 1. A fateful haven. I don't think in the original that... Yes, I'm casting a spell. Right, all spells are in Latin. So Book 1. I sing of warfare and a man at war. From the sea coast of Troy in early days, he came to Italy by destiny. To our Lavinian western shore, a fugitive, this captain, buffeted cruelly on land as on the sea, by blows from powers of the air. Behind him, baleful Juno in her sleepless rage. And cruel losses were his lot in war, till he could found a city and bring home his gods to Latium, land of the Latin race, the Alban lords and the high walls of Rome. Tell me the causes now, O Muse, how galled in her divine pride, and how sore at heart from her old wound, the queen of gods compelled him, a man apart, devoted to his mission, to undergo so many perilous days and enter on so many trials. Can anger black as this prey on the minds of heaven? Tyrian settlers in that ancient time held Carthage on the far shore of the sea, set against Italy and Tiber's mouth, a rich new town, warlike and trained for war. And Juno, we are told, cared more for Carthage than for any walled city of the earth, more than for Samos even. There her armor and chariot were kept, and, fate permitting, Carthage would be the ruler of the world. So she intended, and so nursed that power. But she had heard long since that generations born of Trojan blood would one day overthrow her Tyrian walls, and from that blood a race would come in time with ample kingdoms, arrogant in war, for Libya's ruin. So the parquet spun. In fear of this, and holding in memory the old war she had carried on at Troy for Argos' sake, the origins of that anger, that suffering still rankled deep within her, hidden away, the judgment Paris gave, snubbing her loveliness, the race she hated, the honors given ravished Ganymede. Saturnian Juno, burning for it all, buffeted on the waste of sea those Trojans, left by the Greeks and pitiless Achilles, keeping them far from Latium. For years they wandered as their destiny drove them on from one sea to the next, so hard and huge a task it was to found the Roman people. Hello, Tiny Chris. Okay, so that's just the first little section. This book does a cool job of actually giving you some dividers, when in the ancient text it was just a wall of text, or a wall of text on a scroll 1,000,000 miles long. This one actually divides things up. Okay, so we've got a cool opening. There's a lot of stuff packed in there. I'm just gonna throw that book down. So not in the very couple of first lines, but within that first page, about one big paragraph in, Virgil says, "Tell me the causes now, O Muse, how blah 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 blah. So just like in Homer, we see a beseeching to the muse. Tell me, let me tell through me this story, right? Because we have we have all the gods, and then we have the muses that are specifically dedicated to the different art forms. And there was a goddess, a muse specifically for epic poetry and telling these tales. So you want to honor the god and get the god's help in relating a cool story. Now, interestingly, in this first section, we get no actual mention of the name Aeneas. That's what this story is going to be all about. That's why it's called what it's called. The hero Aeneas. But we don't have his name. We have references to a man at war. But then it's more like these broader prophecies and anger of the gods, and specifically the anger of Juno. Now, why is Juno angry? Well, Juno... Hello, Emily Wolf. Juno is the Roman version of Hera. So she is the mother of the gods, wife of, again here, Jupiter, and she's got a lot of grudges as it happens. And they refer to a couple of them here right at the very beginning. So, number one, she has the ancient grudge. And the ancient grudge is one of, again, I won't go back through the entire thing because I can talk for a very long time about it, but the Trojan War had a few very different causes that came to the war itself. And again, I always wish I don't know if I can bookmark here. It's annoying. Okay. So when I used to teach at UCSB, talking about the Trojan War, I would have a giant blackboard. And yes, back in those days, it was still a blackboard. And on one side, I would start with, what was it? Probably like Leda and the Swan, and then getting to Helen. And then far off on the other side, we've got Thetis and Zeus marrying her off because he doesn't want the prophecy of if he sleeps with her, she'll have somebody more powerful than him. And then Eris, and then the apples, and then Helen, and then anyway, just like all of this stuff coming together to meet in the center at the Trojan War. But on this side, part of this side, because Eris was not invited. Eris, the goddess of strife, was not invited to the wedding because the one thing you don't want at a wedding is strife. She was mad. She created the golden apple that said this should go to the most beautiful, tossed it in there, and of course 3 goddesses jumped up and said, "Oh, that's me, that's mine, it's right here." And to make the fateful decision, they gave that apple, or Zeus gave the apple to Paris, a Trojan. So Paris had to decide, and in most stories, he knew. He was going to make one goddess very happy, and he was going to make 2 goddesses very upset. And that had, again, depending on how you look at it in the stories, huge repercussions for Greeks, Trojans, Romans, as this first part tells us, Carthaginians. A lot of the ancient world basically was affected by that one decision. So of course he chooses, in Roman, we're using Roman names now, he chooses Venus. So Juno is mad, right? So because of that, she hates the Trojans. She favors the Greeks during that war. And then when Aeneas survives and leaves, she's going to try to punish him as much as possible. But not just because of that slight, but also because there is a foretelling that son of Troy is going to come and mess with the Carthaginians. Now, Carthage for the Romans is a big, big deal. If you're not familiar with Carthage, Carthage was an ancient nation that was around about in modern day North Africa. And we know a lot about Carthage. Let's see. Oh, hey, Darrow. Uh-oh, Darrow did something. Yeah, and exactly. So as yeah, exact. Yep. Yeah, Carthage was a big deal. They had a really great. They had a really powerful navy. They were definitely in a rival of Italy for or of Rome. Uh, yeah, for controlling the Mediterranean Sea. So there were battles between them. Okay, now so Carthage, just to give a little bit of a preview for some of the names. So Carthage was founded by Phoenicians, and then so we have a lot of PH, and P words in there. So the wars between Rome and Carthage will be called the Punic Wars. And here we also get amazing historical characters like Hannibal, uh, and yeah, and there's lots of really interesting stuff about Carthage. Sort of like the gods they had and the practices they had. Did they do child sacrifice? Probably a little bit. They had elephants. Like there's all this really cool stuff that you can go and look up about Carthage. I won't talk about too much about it right now, but it's it is really very interesting. But yes, by this time, it hasn't been too long. Let's see, when did the last Punic Wars end? I always forget that one. Phoenician etymology, we don't need that. Punic Republic, Roman Carthage, ancient history. Okay, 146 BC at the Battle of Carthage. Yes. When the Romans finally got there and just were like, we're done with you, and just knocked it all down. Cool. But yes, but in the bounds of this story, Juno really loves Carthage, and she's not happy that somebody is coming there who's going to. Yeah, exactly. There's a great story that they destroyed everything and salted the ground so nothing could ever live there. This also this first section references Ganymede. Ganymede, other than a moon, was another character in Greek and Roman mythology. In this case, a young boy whom Jupiter fell in love with, and so of course, anybody that Jupiter pays attention to, Juno's not going to be happy about. So just adds another one of those in there. Okay, so again, we don't get Aeneas' name yet. We just know that some Romans survive. It says, for years they wandered as their destiny drove them on from one sea to the next. So hard and huge a task it was to found the Roman people. And again, the Romans picked up on this idea. They read the Iliad. They saw there's that note that Homer has in the Iliad that Aeneas, who again, he's an ally of the Trojans, but he's not from Troy itself. He's not a son of Priam, but he's like a cousin who lives nearby. And there's a note in the Iliad that says Aeneas survives to fulfill a great destiny. But what is it? What is it? Homer doesn't tell us. So the Romans were like, oh, he came and helped us out. They were all under sail in open water, with Sicily just out of sight astern, light-hearted as they ploughed the white-capped sea with stems of cutting bronze. But never free of her eternal inward wound, the goddess said to herself, give up what I began? Am I defeated? Am I impotent to keep the king of Teucrians from Italy? The fates forbid me, am I to suppose? Could Pallas, then, consume the Argive fleet with fire, drown the crews, because of one man's one mad act? The crime of Ajax, son of Oileus? She, yes, she, hurled out of cloudland, lancing fire of Jove, scattered the ships, roughed up the sea with gales, then caught the man, bolt struck, exhaling flames, in a whirlwind and impaled him on a rock. But I, who walk as queen of all the gods, sister and wife of Jove, I must contend for years against one people. Who adores the power of Juno after this, or lays an offering with prayer upon her altar? So yeah, Juno's pissed because she looks out and she sees Trojans having survived the war, and they're just happy. They're sailing. They're at Sicily. They're so close to where she knows they're going to end up. She's like, do I have to suffer this? And then she relates a story. Now, if you remember about the end of the Trojan War, which again is not in the Iliad, we get pieces of it in the Odyssey, but not that much. We get it from other sources. Some of the Greeks at the end of the Trojan War did really, really bad stuff. And one of those was the lesser Ajax, Oilean Ajax, son of Oileus, and he raped a woman on the shrine, literally on the shrine to Athena. Very bad idea, for lots of reasons. Obviously, a terrible act. So Juno's relating, wait a minute, that guy did that, and then he escaped, but while he was on his ship going home, Athena blasted the ship apart, killed the guy, and the whole thing. So how come I can't do anything about these people coming to do bad stuff related to me? Smoldering, putting these questions to herself, the goddess made her way to Storm Cloud country, Aeolia, the weather-breeding isle. Here in a vast cavern, King Aeolus rules the contending winds and moaning gales as warden of their prison. Round the walls they chafe and bluster underground. The din makes a great mountain murmur overhead. High on a citadel enthroned, scepter in hand, he mollifies their fury, else they might flay the sea and sweep away land masses and deep sky through empty air. In fear of this, Jupiter hid them away in caverns of black night. He set above them granite of high mountains, and a king, empowered at command to rein them in or let them go. To this king Juno now made her petition. Aeolus, the father of gods and men, decreed and fixed your power to calm the waves and make them rise in wind. The race I hate is crossing the Tuscan sea, transporting Ilium with her household gods, beaten as they are, to Italy. Put new fury into your winds and make the long ships founder. Drive them off course. Throw bodies in the sea. I have 14 exquisite nymphs, of whom the loveliest by far, Deiopeia, shall be your own. I'll join you two in marriage, so she will spend all future years with you, and you so well deserve, and make you father of her lovely children. So as usually, we have the gods wheeling and dealing, setting up marriages for political purposes, or just straight up revenge purposes. Dara, you didn't tell us what miniatures did you buy. Yeah, so there's the land where the winds... Now, the winds are personified in these ancient mythologies. They have names. Sometimes they have characteristics, but usually they just sort of have locations. So we've got like north wind, south wind, east wind, west wind. But they're also... Like I said, sometimes they're characterized, sometimes they're just like these forces that will cause chaos if they're let loose, and Aeolus just have to keep them, keep them locked up and just can let them out when he wants. But Juno's like, help me out here. Do me a favor. I will give you 14 nymphs, and this one you'll marry, and it'll be great. Or I have 14 nymphs, and the loveliest will be yours. Said Aeolus, to settle on what you wish is all you need to do, your majesty. I must perform it. You have given me what realm I have. By your good offices I rule with Jove's consent, and I recline among the gods at feasts, for you appoint me lord of wind and cloud. Spear haft reversed, he gave the hollow mountainside a stroke, and, where a portal opened, winds in ranks, as though drawn up for battle, hurtled through, to blow across the earth in hurricane. Over the sea, tossed up from the sea floor, east wind and south wind, then the wild southwest with a squall on squall came scudding down, rolling high combers shoreward. Combers? Now one heard the cries of men and screech of ropes and rigging, suddenly, as the storm cloud whipped away clear sky and daylight from the Teucrians' eyes, and gloom of night leaned on the open sea. It thundered from all quarters as it lightened flash on flash through heaven. Every sign portended a quick death for mariners. Aeneas, on the instant, felt his knees go numb and slack, and stretched both hands to heaven, groaning out, "Triply lucky, all you men to whom death came before your father's eyes below the wall at Troy. Bravest Danaan Diomedes, why could I not go down when you had wounded me, and lose my life on Ilium's battlefield? Our Hector lies there, torn by Achilles' weapon. There Sarpedon, our giant fighter, lies, and there the river Simois washes down so many shields and helmets, with strong bodies taken under." Okay, so Aeolus releases the winds. They come. It's immediately like this giant storm. The sky is completely blocked out. They can't see the sun. It looks bad. So the very first mention we have of Aeneas, the first mention of his name, the first time he does anything or says anything, literally is Aeneas, on the instant, felt his knees go numb and slack, and stretched out both hands to heaven, groaning out. So our mighty hero is afraid, is weak, and bemoans the fact that he did not die at Troy in battle, and that he is stuck on a ship and that's about to be destroyed in open waters and drowned to death. Now this is Rabid Wombat. It must be after, because he was giant and he died. So there's a lot of discussion when we talked about the Iliad and the Odyssey of sort of like, what's the ideal hero based on what we read in the Iliad? What does the text tell us is the ideal hero? Sort of like metatextual, what's the ideal hero? And I mean, you have to look and say Achilles is the ideal hero, and he is larger than life. He is, he's super powerful in battle, but he has such strong emotions. And then we get the Odyssey, and we have Odysseus, who's not exactly that kind of a hero. He whines a lot. He complains. He's sad. He gives up at certain points. Hello, it's Patty Fitz. Welcome, Patty. So now here we have, again, a further evolution of that hero. And we're going to see pretty big differences in heroic ideals, because the Romans had their own thoughts about a lot of things. And so yes, so Aeneas, he's very human. He's afraid. He's scared. He has regrets. Or ragrets, depending on your point of view. And again, we'll see some other really interesting differences as well. So he's freaked out. The sky is closing up. What is he going to do? He beseeches the gods, sort of in general, and references people who died over at Troy. Thank you so much, Patty. I appreciate that. It was a good birthday. We just hung out, had pizza, and cake. So much cake. So much cake. There's a local baker. It's actually kind of cool. They're sisters. One of them is a baker. One of them is a chocolatier. And so we order stuff from them. And so we got a chocolate cake for everybody, and then a carrot cake that only I eat. But it's like, I'm a big fan of carrot cake, and this lady makes the best carrot cake I've ever had. And it's amazing. Not cheap, but it's very good. And so, I ate a ton of it on my birthday, and then saved a little bit to eat the next day, and then froze it in sections so I can take out a piece and then eat it at a time. It's very, very good. I should go eat some more today. Yes. Yeah, carrot cake and the chocolate cake. All right, so let's go and let's see what's happening with these heroes. As he flung out these words, a howling gust from due north took the sails aback and lifted wave tops to heaven. Oars were snapped in two. The prow sheared round and left them broadside on to breaking seas. Over her flank and deck, a mountain of gray water crashed in tons. It's chaos here. It's chaos everywhere. I understand. Not everybody is a fan of carrot cake. Believe me, I understand. It's sort of like I've told the story about my dad. It's chaos. My dad drank gin, and he would frequently talk about how gin does not taste very good, but if you drink gin, it's good because then nobody will ever ask to have your drink and take your drink away from you. And it was partly a joke. I don't know, partly serious, but I kind of feel that way about carrot cake. I genuinely do love carrot cake, but it's also kind of cool because when somebody gives me carrot cake, most people aren't going to ask for a piece or try to take it. Eridansk, no, I was not, but we'll do it again one of these days. I'm not saying that gin is bad. I'm just saying that gin definitely has fewer people who like it than other alcohols. I believe from what I've heard. Oh, sour cream chips, interesting. Yeah. Anyway, okay, yeah. So the waters are flowing. It's so hard. It pushes the ship sideways, so then it's getting buffeted by the waves and the winds from broadsides. Men hung on crests, to some a yawning trough, uncovered bottom, boiling waves and sand. So it's pushing up the water so hard that you can actually see the bottom in places. Crazy. The south wind caught 3 ships and whirled them down on reefs hidden mid-sea, called by Italians the altars, razorbacks just under water. The east wind drove 3 others from deep water into great shoals and banks, embedding them and wringing them with sand, a desperate sight. Before Aeneas' eyes, a toppling billow struck the Lycian ship, Orontes' ship, across the stern, pitching the steersman down and overboard. 3 times the eddying sea carried the ship around in the same place until the rapid whirlpool gulped it down. A few men swimming surfaced in the welter. So did shields, planks, precious things of Troy, Ilonius' good ship, brave Achates' ship, the ship that carried Abas, and the one Aletes sailed in, hail in his great age, were all undone by the wild gale. Their seams parted and let the enemy pour in. During all this, Neptune became aware of hurly-burly and tempest overhead, bringing commotion to the still sea depth and rousing him. He lifted his calm brow above the surface, viewing the great sea, and saw Aeneas' squadron far and wide, dispersed over the water, saw the Trojans overwhelmed, the ruining clouds of heaven, and saw his angry sisters hand in all. He called to him east wind and south wind, and said, so now, remember, so normally what happens is, anything that happens on the ocean is the purview of Neptune, right? Neptune is the king of the waters, king of the ocean. He invented the horse and did earthquakes, all of these kind of things. But in this case, this storm was not of Neptune's doing. Juno went directly to the god, the minor god who's in charge of the winds, got the winds to come and mess things up. So Neptune pops up, sees what's going on, and talks to the winds directly. Are you so sure your line is privileged? How could you dare to throw heaven and earth into confusion by no will of mine and make such trouble? You will get from me, but first, to calm the rough sea. After this, you'll pay a stricter penalty for your sins. Off with you! Give this message to your king. Power over the sea and the cruel trident were never his by destiny, but mine. He owns the monstrous rocks, your home, east wind. Let Aeolus ruffle in that hall alone, and lord it over winds shut in their prison. Before the words were out, he quieted the surging water, drove the clouds away, and brought the sunlight back. Chimothoe and Triton side by side worked to dislodge the grounded ships. Then Neptune with his trident heaved them away, opened the miles of shoals, tempered the sea, and in his car departed, gliding over the wave tops on light wheels. You don't mess around with the ocean without asking Neptune for permission. And so he says, I'm done with this crap. Winds go home. And he calms the sea, picks up all the trash that has been left on his sea floor, pushes it away. When rioting breaks out in a great city, and the rampaging rabble goes so far that stones fly and incendiary brands, for anger can supply that kind of weapon, if it so happens they look around and see some dedicated public man, a veteran whose record gives him weight, they quiet down, willing to stop and listen. Then he prevails in speech over their fury by his authority and placates them. Just so, the whole uproar of the great sea fell silent, as the father of it all, scanning horizons under the open sky, swung his team around and gave free rein in flight to his eager chariot. So we'll see a lot of literary writing flourishes like that. Suddenly we'll pull way back and we'll get like this reference to very often things that would be ideal for Roman statesmen, right? So here we have, hey, look, sometimes there's a wild rabble. Like the poor people get up in flames and they start yelling and waving stuff around. But a good nobleman can calm them down and bring everybody under order. Just like that, Neptune has calmed the sea. Ooh, ketchup chips. No, I'm not a fan. Is anybody here... What was that company? Is anybody here old enough and was living in the right place to remember... What was it? Was it Charles Chips? Is that what it was? Hold on. Now I have to... Yeah, Charles Chips. Oh my god. The memories. The memories! I guess it's still around? That's crazy. So Charles Chips, I guess it's... Is it still a company? Weird. Okay, well it still exists in one form, but Charles Chips was a company with, I don't know if my mom is watching, but or listening. Okay, are you ready for this? Yeah, so Charles Chips used to be, now it's just a brand name, but it used to be a company that made chips and pretzels and other things, and they delivered it to your house, and they delivered it in these giant tins, and it was way ahead of its time and amazing, and their stuff was really good. If you look up a tin, you can see, and you can still buy them, but again, like it's not the same thing as it was. My mom loved these chips, so we would get them, and we get them delivered. And they had a ketchup one that we tried once, but it was not good. Oh yeah, this was in the 80s. Yeah, I haven't thought about that in forever. Yeah, those tins, and we used to... Wow. That is a blast from the past. Yeah, that's going way back. Way back. Okay, so the sea is now calm. Neptune has quieted things down. Stop it. Notice Neptune doesn't say anything about how he cares about who is involved, like who these people are on these ships. Doesn't matter. It just... Stop making a fuss in my place. Tired out, Aeneas' people made for the nearest land, turning their prows toward Libya. There's a spot where at the mouth of a long bay an island makes a harbor, forming a breakwater where every swell divides as it comes in and runs far into curving recesses. There are high cliffs on this side and on that, and twin peaks towering heavenward impend on reaches of still water. Over these, against a forest backdrop shimmering, a dark and shaggy grove casts a deep shade, while in the cliffside opposite, below the overhanging peaks, there is a cave with fresh water and seats in the living rock, the home of nymphs. Here never an anchor chain, never an anchor's biting fluke need hold a tired ship. So it's a really nice, idyllic place where you can just rest a ship. You don't even need to put down an anchor, the ship is just going to stay put. Aeneas put in here with only 7 ships from his full number. Now, we don't know what that full number was. We just know that he's lost some along the way. Oh my god, what? I'm going to eat all the chips. Oh, I can't imagine eating chips on stream, though. That would be... Or I can't imagine listening and watching somebody do that. No, thank you. And longing for the firm earth underfoot, the Trojans disembarked to take possession of the desired sand beach. Down they lay to rest their brine-soaked bodies on the shore. Achates promptly struck a spark from flint and caught it in dry leaves. He added tinder round about and waved it for a flame burst. Then they brought out the grain of Ceres, tainted by seawater, and Ceres' implements, and, weary of their troubles, made all ready to dry and grind with millstones what they had. They're gonna make bread, which is kind of cool. Meanwhile, Aeneas climbed one of the peaks for a long seaward view, hoping to sight gale-worn Antheus and Phrygian biremes, Capys or high poops bearing Caicus' arms. So he's looking for the other ships, the other men. Yo. Right, Patty? Nobody wants to listen to people eat chips on stream. Ugh. He found no ship in sight, but on the shore 3 wandering stags. Behind them whole herds followed, gathering or grazing in a long line down the valleys. Planting his feet, he took in hand the bow and arrows carried by his side, Achates'. Then, aiming for the leaders with heads high and branching antlers, brought them first to earth. Next, he routed the whole herd, driving them with his shafts through leafy places, shouting and shooting till he won the hunt by laying 7 carcasses on the ground, a number equal to his ships. Then back to port he went, and parceled out the game to his ship's companies. There he divided the wine courtly Ascetes had poured out, and given them on the Sicilian shore, full jugs of it, where they were about to sail. By this, and by a simple speech, Aeneas comforted his people. So again, this is cool. Aeneas, the great hero, this leader, he looks about, and he's looking for his fellow ships and his people. And he doesn't see any more ships. But what does he see? He sees a herd of deer. All right, have a good class, Emily. Thanks for stopping by. See you later. So Aeneas, this powerful hero, what does he see? He sees deer. And the first instance, the first combat we get in this book is Aeneas shooting arrows and hunting deer to feed his people. He's not fighting men. He's not a great warrior. He's just simply hunting for food and sustenance for his men. That's important. This is important stuff. Also, it mentioned before, I didn't... yes, you can still buy the actual tins on Amazon. But again, it's not... I haven't had Charles chips lately, but I don't think it's... I mean, maybe it's the same formulation as it was when I was little. I don't know. It made a couple of references about local gods and bringing gods with you. So the Greeks had this a little bit, but the Romans really, really had this. There's like the main pantheon of gods that we hear about, right? We've got, Jupiter and Juno and Neptune and Ares and all the big gods. Mars, rather. Sorry. Charleston shoes. Charles chips. Yeah. Very different. I guess you could mix them together. That'd be super gross. But the Romans also had a bunch of minor gods. Now, we talk about the Greeks having gods for everything. So there was a god that was representing... oh, man. Yeah, chips and... must be eaten together. Just like a bite. Yeah, no. So the Greeks had gods that were... everything in the natural world was represented by a god to some degree. The Romans had this also, but they also, beyond that, had mini gods, essentially. So in your household, in your home, you would have an altar, and the altar would have, some depictions of like the big pantheon. But you'd also have a bunch of little knickknacks, not so different from what I have behind me. But you'd have like little figurines of different gods, and they're almost like gods of house and home. There are different words for them. Gods of the hearth, and they just be little figurines to represent all of the protective energies for your house and for your family. And yeah, so that's what it's talking about when it's talking about. And these you could actually, they're not central to a a city necessarily. They're just like they're central to you and your family and your home. So you can take them with you if you were to move. And again, a little bit of a different situation than exactly what the Greeks had. Tiny Chris, I think at times they have had cookies and pretzels, maybe popcorn. But yeah. Oh, there's so many. Yes, so many gods, so many little itty bitty gods. Okay, so it says that Aeneas calmed his people with the food and the wine and a simple speech. So here we get the first words from Aeneas. And even what are the very first words uttered out of his mouth? Well, we heard his thoughts before, right? So he was thinking. No, I guess he did speak before about how it would have been better to die in battle. So that was. But this is his first words, at least to his people. Friends and companions, have we not known hard hours before this? My men, who have endured still greater dangers, God will grant us an end to these as well. You sailed by Scylla's rage, her booming crags, you saw the Cyclops' boulders. Now call back your courage, and have done with fear and sorrow. Some day, perhaps, remembering even this will be a pleasure. Through diversities of luck, and through so many challenges, we hold our course for Latium, where the fates hold out a settlement and rest for us. Troy's kingdom there shall rise again. Be patient, save yourselves for more auspicious days. So ran the speech. Burdened and sick at heart, he feigned hope in his look, and inwardly contained his anguish. Now the Trojan crews made ready for their windfall and their feast. They skinned the deer, bared ribs and viscera. Then one lot sliced the flesh and skewered it on spits, all quivering, while others filled bronze cooking pots and tended the beach fires. All got their strength back from the meal, reclining on the wild grass, gorging on venison and mellowed wine. When hunger had been banished and tables put away, they talked at length in hope and fear about their missing friends. Could one believe they might still be alive, or had they suffered their last hour, never again to hear a voice that called them? Aeneas, more than any, secretly mourned for them all, for that fierce man Orontes, then for Amycus, then for the bitter fate of Lycus, for brave Gaius, brave Cloanthus. So Aeneas gives a little speech. Look, I know this is hard, but one day we're going to look back on this and laugh. There'll be better times. But then it says he's burdened and sick at heart. He feigned hope in his look and inwardly contained his anguish. You've got to feel for Aeneas. You've got to love the guy. He's a great guy. He cares about his people. He cares about trying to, not just to save them, but he wants to keep their spirits up. It's good stuff. He is many, many times the captain leader that Odysseus was. Now, he's not perfect. Aeneas, not perfect. And we're going to talk about that, especially with what happens at Carthage and with Queen Dido. If you've never heard about Queen Dido, whoa, we've got a wild story for you. Dido, yes. It's a big deal. Wasn't she an amazing singer? Yes. What has she done lately? After her thing with Eminem, I haven't heard from her. It was the day's end when from highest air Jupiter looked down on the broad sea flecked with wings of sail, and the land masses, coasts, and the nations of the earth. He stood on heaven's height and turned his gaze toward Libya. And as he took the troubles there to heart, Venus appealed to him, all pale and wan, with tears in her shining eyes. Patty says, so in the class I read this book for, we had a final exam, which was just 12 random quotes from all the books we read that semester. That is the worst goddamn thing. So I had a class in high school. Patty, I am sorry. I am sorry for all of academia that happened to you, because that is terrible. No teacher should ever do that. That is the worst type of testing and teaching there is. When I first read The Great Gatsby in high school, I had that kind of a teacher. And the test was like, I think the test literally said like, give 3 adjectives for how Gatsby describes Daisy's smile in chapter 4 or whatever. And of course, like, there's some stuff is important. Some stuff, like that nitty-gritty detail, is just garbage. Screw that. That should never be allowed. Never, ever, ever. And again, on behalf of everyone in the ivory towers of academia, Patty, I apologize, and I'm sorry that happened to you. Why? Why are people like that? Why are teachers like that? It's just like, haha, look, I'm the teacher. Look how much smarter I am than you. Look how much I've memorized, and you haven't. Ugh, stupid. Patty, like I said, I commiserate with you, and I'm sorry that happened. It was the only B you've ever got. No, that is not good. Not good teaching. Not good testing. So we have Jupiter. Jupiter's looking down over his world. What's going on? And Venus comes to him. Now Venus is. I try. Venus is a really interesting character among the gods, because you have the Olympian gods, right? I'm gonna mix up the names Greek and Roman just because I always do, but we have Jupiter and Juno, and then most of the other gods are their children, or the children of one of them, or both of them, whatever. But remember, Venus, Aphrodite, she is actually a child of the previous gods, because she was born from Cronus. Well, no, she's... Okay. So, Cronus, the Titan, chopped off the genitals of his father, Uranus. They fell into the ocean, and the froth, the blood, whatever you want to call it, mixed with the ocean and the foam, and it came out, and it was Aphrodite. So, Aphrodite, Venus, is technically... If you say that she is basically born from that previous generation, she's a Titan, not really an Olympian god. But because all of the gods and goddesses are subservient to Jupiter, she does sort of become a substitute daughter anyway. So Venus comes to appeal to Jupiter, and it says she's pale and wan, with tears in her shining eyes. So she's really putting this on. Now Venus loves Aeneas and loves Trojans because Paris, the Trojan, chose her in the contest of who is the most beautiful of the goddesses. So she's always on the side of the Trojans and Aeneas. My lord, who rules the lives of men and gods now and forever, and brings them all to heel with your bright bolt, what in the world could my Aeneas do? What could the Trojans do so to offend you, that after suffering all those deaths, they find the whole world closed to them because of Italy? Surely from these the Romans are to come in the course of years, renewing Teucer's line, to rule the sea and all the lands around it, according to your promise. What new thought has turned you from them, father? I consoled myself for Troy's fall, that grim ruin, weighing out one fate against another in the scales. But now, when they have borne so many blows, the same misfortune follows them. Great king, what finish to their troubles will you give? After Antenor slipped through the Achaeans, he could explore Illyrian coves and reach in safety the Liburnians' inland kingdoms and source of the Timavus. Okay, references to a bunch of other stuff. Through 9 openings with a great rumble in the mountain. Blah, 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 blah. As for ourselves, your own children, whom you make heirs of heaven, our ships being lost, this is unspeakable. We are forsaken through one enemy's rage and kept remote from Italy. Is this the palm for loyalty? This our power restored? She's beseeching Jupiter. He smiled at her, the father of gods and men, with that serenity that calms the weather. Or he smiled at her with the serenity that calms the weather, and lightly kissed his daughter. Then he said, "No need to be afraid, Cytherea." Venus. "Your children's destiny has not been changed. As promised, you shall see Lavinium's walls, and take up then, amid the stars of heaven, great-souled Aeneas. No new thought has turned me. No, he, your son, now let me speak of him, in view of your consuming care at length, unfolding secret, fated things to come. In Italy, he will fight a massive war, beat down fierce armies, then for the people there, establish city walls and a way of life. When the Rutulians are subdued, he'll pass 3 summers of command in Latium, 3 years of winter quarters. But the boy Ascanius, to whom the name of Iulus is now added, Ilus, while Ilium stood, will hold the power for all of 30 years, great rings of wheeling months. He will transfer his capital from Lavinium and make a fortress, Alba Longa. 3 full centuries that kingdom will be ruled by Hector's race, until the queen and priestess Ilia, pregnant by Mars, will bear twin sons to him. Afterward, happy in the tawny pelt his nurse, the she-wolf, wears, young Romulus will take the leadership, build walls of Mars, and call by his own name his people Romans. For these I set no limits, world or time, but make the gift of empire without end. Juno, indeed, whose bitterness now fills with fear and torment sea and earth and sky, will mend her ways, and favor them, as I do, lords of the world, the toga-bearing Romans. Such is our pleasure. As the years fall away, an age comes when Assaracus' royal house will bring to servitude Thessalian Phthia, renown Mycenae too, and subjugate defeated Argos. From that comely line the Trojan Caesar comes, to circumscribe empire with ocean, fame with heaven's stars, Julius his name, from Iulus handed down. All tranquil shall you take him heavenward in time, laden with plunder of the east, and he with you shall be invoked in prayer. Wars at an end, harsh centuries then will soften. Ancient Fides and Vesta, Quirinus with brother Remus, will be lawgivers, and grim with iron frames the gates of war will then be shut. Inside, unholy furor, squatting on cruel weapons, hands enchained behind him by 100 links of bronze, will grind his teeth and howl with bloodied mouth. Let me read this one little part. That said, he sent down son of Maia from his high place to make the land of Carthage, the new-built town, receptive to the Trojans, not to allow Queen Dido, all unknowing as to the fated future, to exclude them. Through the vast air with stroking wings he flew, and came down quickly on the Libyan coast, performing Jove's command, so that at once Phoenicians put aside belligerence as the god willed. Especially the queen took on a peaceful mood, an open mind toward Teucrians. Okay, now there was a lot packed in that speech there that Jupiter gave, but essentially what he's saying is, and again, we're going to think about this both in terms of the story and in terms of the time at which Virgil was writing this. Ooh, thank you. It's true. So he says, yes. The fates are still what they are. We can't change the fates. Aeneas will make it to Italy. And here are all of the things that are going to happen. So essentially in one page, here in the beginning of this book, Jupiter outlines not only, I mean, it's basically, he's giving away the whole story. There's going to be a battle with the Rhetorians. Aeneas is going to win. He's going to rule for only 3 years. And then he's going to go up and be with you. His son, Aeneas, who has come with him from Troy, is going to be renamed. And then he's going to be in power. He's going to move his capital to Alba Longa. For 300 years, they're going to be the line of Trojans who are going to rule there. Then this priestess Ilia is going to have twins, Romulus and Remus, right? Whose father will be Mars. Romulus is going to build walls. They're going to set up, and then there's going to be Romans, the toga-bearing Romans. And then it even says, again, this is Virgil talking. For these Romans, I set no limits, world or time, but make the gift of empire without end. They will rule the entire world. They'll rule forever. There will never ever be an end to the Roman Empire. It will last forever, of course. Of course. And then it even goes so far as to talk about Julius Caesar in here, and how great he is, and how much fame and land he will take over. And then he will go up to be among the gods as well. And then there's a super, I don't know if maybe you've heard this, maybe not, but there's the very end there is very, very famous. But it talks about how once laws and honor and trustworthiness are all essentially in power and everybody's obeying them, you have the lawgivers are in place. So then there's this last part. With iron frames, the gates of war will be shut, and inside unholy furor, the madness and rage, squatting on cruel weapons, hands enchained behind him by 100 links of bronze, will grind his teeth and howl with bloodied mouth. So essentially, not only will there be peace, but we're going to take the actual embodiment of rage and fighting and madness, and we're going to lock him up with chains, close the doors on him forever, and he'll just be screaming and screeching there, but will not be able to get out. Yeah. Obviously, yeah, it's not going to go exactly that way. Rome, of course, will fall, and there'll be lots and lots of other wars and crazy things going on in the future. Yeah. And then we're going to get very soon here to Dido. Rome will fall, spoiler. Yeah, I know, sorry. Oh, cool. So that's the beginning, the first part of the first book of the Aeneid. There's still a lot left. I'll try to look through again. I'd love to read it all. That would take a very long time, and I don't know if we want to be doing this for months and months and months, but we'll see. Hopefully hopefully I'll have the time to look ahead and find like the best parts to go over, and then skip a few over the less important parts. Yeah, what did Nightbot say? Susie, Raleigh, and Dallas. There you go. Yeah, just smash them all together. Raleigh. Yeah. The Aeneid. I love it. It's great. It's a great book. Chip eating in between. Ugh. Oh, and then I just think of like, and then eating chips and then trying to talk afterward and talk through. Blech. No, thank you. What does this week hold? This week will be, I think, a pretty normal week of streaming. again, except for Wednesday, Myths and Video Games with Tiny Chris. First name I see when I look up. Myths and Video Games with Pete Wiz. Maybe in the future with Tiny Chris we'll collaborate. No Myths and Video Games this week, but it will triumphantly return next week. So we have tomorrow. I'll be back with toys. I have no idea what it's going to be yet, but I'll figure out something cool. Tomorrow afternoon will be Dunes Day with Jessica, as usual. Wednesday morning will be Warhammer. Nothing on Thursday. And then Figure Friday. And so on and so forth. Saturday, as of now, there will be... Oh, Bondo. Look at that number, baby. I'm over 1K. We did it. So yes, so if any of you, God forbid, if any of you are not following Jessica, I imagine you all are, but definitely go and follow her and tell all of your friends. Now again, the follower thing, it's very silly. Yes, I have more followers. Jessica has way more subscribers than I do. And it's fine. It's great. It's all good. Yeah, so this coming Saturday, I almost certainly will be doing the War Room stream, but I will not be joining the Home Buddies for the group stream that night. Saturday is the start of Passover, so we'll be doing a Seder here at the house, and I'll be busy that night. It happens. Yeah, don't all go and unfollow Jessica. It's fine. No, it's all good. I love and appreciate everybody who hangs out and watches, and yeah, Passover starts on Saturday. In fact, in just a little bit, Chris is going to go do some Passover food shopping. We got to get all the stuff that we need. Passover's a big deal. It's cool. It's a big holiday. I can talk about it more if people are interested. So yeah, that's my week. Yeah, I don't think there's really anything else too crazy going on. Probably, I've got some more review samples coming in at some point. More Star Trek Attack Wing things happening. Oh yeah, Tiny Chris. I'll get my... Like I said, so for those of you who don't know about Passover, it's the Jewish holiday celebrating the Jews escaping Pharaoh in Egypt. It's the Exodus story in the Bible, in the Torah. And the two main parts of the holiday are on the first two nights you do a Seder, which is a big... It's a meal, but right before the meal you just go through... There's a book, and you read the story, you do specific prayers, and there are ritual parts of the meal to represent different things. I'm sure even if you don't know much about Passover, you probably have heard of or have tasted matzah before or have seen it. It's unleavened bread, so it's like really thin cracker. And then throughout the week of Passover, depending on how observant you are, you won't eat anything that has anything in it that rises when you bake it or cook it. So nothing with yeast, no rice, depending on what kind of tradition you're in. There's a lot of some Jews don't eat beans. It depends. There's a lot of other stuff. No, so Aaron, in this case, it's when the Jews were trying to leave Egypt, and the Pharaoh wouldn't let them go, let my people go. So Moses went and talked to God, and then God sent the plagues. And after each plague, Pharaoh still said no, and it's complicated. But eventually there was the final plague, the death of the firstborn in Egypt. And so that's where we get the actual term Passover, because the Jews, the Israelites, knew that the plague was coming, and so they were told to paint the doorposts of your door with blood, and that way the angels would know to skip over those houses and not kill the firstborn there. So they passed over those houses, went and killed the firstborn of the Egyptians. At that, Pharaoh said, "All right, get the hell out of here," and The Jews, they knew when the getting was good, so they just grabbed up all their stuff and ran, and they did not have time to bake bread that rose. They can only bake bread very quickly without leaven. So because of that, we eat things that don't rise during Passover. So basically, most typically, we eat a lot of matzah rather than any sort of breads and things like that. But again, depending on how observant you are, like you'll only eat things that are labeled and like approved kosher for Passover to make sure there's nothing in it that has any of that kind of stuff. It's a whole thing. Yes. Oh, and there's so many cool plague things. Yeah, for kids, like activities with plagues, and yeah, we've got some of that stuff. We have a whole box of things in or a big tub in the garage we have to get out. So anyway, that is very briefly. There you go. There's the story of Passover. Yes, there's a lot of wine involved. It's good times. Yeah, and the food. Oh, we do some really good Passover food. It's one of the few times of a year I eat meat. Just I'm not a big meat eater, but we do it for Passover. Yep, the puppets. Mm-hmm. Mom, I don't know if you were here before, but we were talking about Charles chips, your old favorite. Yeah, so Chris is gonna make soup, her famous matzo ball soup. Oh yeah, that's right. So, is there a Herschel book for it? Not that I know of. There are books about, like kids' books stuff about Passover, but I don't think there's any like the Hanukkah book. Not that good. Yeah, so the book that you read during the Seder, tells you what to do. It has stories. There are a lot of them out there. Tiny Chris was talking about. There's what's it? The coffee company, Maxwell House, right? Maxwell House. They've made these books forever because they were the first coffee company to have kosher for Passover coffee here in the United States. So like, hey, let's get in on this, and we'll also have books to go with them. But the books that we use in my family, I've had since I was a kid in the 80s. So the book that we use, it starts off, and I always show this every year because I lead the service, but it starts off with a message of hope and prayer for the Jews stuck in the USSR. So if you're old enough to know what that means and why that's important, then there you go. Yeah, it's a little old fashioned at this point, but it's still good. It has great artwork in it, and it has a really funny note because as Tiny Chris is talking about, there's a part where you actually, you make a little sandwich of the matzah and some of the other ritual foods that you have, and there's a little asterisk in our book, and you go down to the bottom, and there's a note that says, contrary to popular belief, it was the ancient Jews, not the Earl of Sandwich, that created the sandwich. It's like, okay, sure, why not? Yeah, it's a good book. It's funny in places. I know they just had to get that note in there. But yeah, one way or another, there was an Earl of Sandwich. Yeah. Oh, you don't know the Earl of Sandwich? I don't know the whole story, but he's typically honored as being the inventor of the modern sandwich or something. I don't know. It's silly. It's all silly. So yeah, we'll do the Aeneid for the foreseeable future. Like I said, I don't know how much. I'd love to read it all, but that would take forever. I'll have to figure out a way to pick and choose going forward. But yeah, it's good. There are love stories in this book. There are wars. There's fighting. There's wanderings, similar to Odysseus in the Odyssey. There's an encounter with the underworld, just like Odysseus had. There's a lot of good stuff in here. And this is a pretty good translation. It's poetic without being like so dense you can't understand it. Right, I think so. Cool. All right. Well, I need to get going because we've got a lot of family stuff to do today. So, as always, thank you everybody for hanging out. I had a lot of fun conversation going on today about the book, and then not with it. Oh my god. Yeah, I don't. Has there ever been? Have they adapted the Aeneid? I don't think so. Now, Aeneas does show up. There was that scene in the movie Troy. Aeneas is in that movie, and yeah, it's bad. But remember that on Netflix, there's the Troy Fall of a City miniseries that's actually good. Watch that one, and Aeneas does play a part in that series, which is pretty cool. Thank you, Darrow, for hitting all of those commands, showing off all the things. Yes. Falcor, great name. Ash, obviously a great name. Lobo, you know these names. These are super famous names. Everybody knows these names. Yeah, good. Good. Everybody have a great day. I'm not raiding. I'm just going to hit that end stream button. I will be back tomorrow with toys. Okay, bye.